This podcast is sponsored by Lucy and Yak, and I'm so excited to share their Indie Biz program with you. Running an independent business means making tough choices, and sustainable options aren't always the most affordable. That's why Lucy and Yak are offering 40% off their sustainably made workwear, including aprons, so you don't have to compromise. Sign up to Indie Biz, and not only will you get the discount, but you could also be featured across Lucy and Yak's channels, spotlighting your business. Plus, they've got exciting plans for 2025, including Indie Biz markets. Head to the Lucy and Yak website to apply and join the community. Have you ever spent hours creating the perfect Instagram post and got crickets? Same. Imagine this instead. A fashion brand sets up a What's Your Style personality quiz using Score app. Shoppers get personalised product recommendations and you get email sign-ups, warm leads and a few cheeky sales. You can even use Score app for product waitlists, competitions and so much more. It's the perfect lead generation tool for your fashion brand. So head to scoreapp.com/fashion and get an exclusive 50% off your first month with Score app, or use the code FASHION at the checkout. So, welcome back to the Fashion Brand Clinic, the podcast for fashion founders who are ready to scale with less stress and more strategy. And today I'm joined by Alie Mackintosh, the founder of AYM, which is a British brand known for its timeless, empowering women's wear and strong stance on sustainability. And we're going to go behind the scenes of AYM's journey from the Boom Boom Boutique days to working with Kim Kardashian, OMG. So, hi Alie, nice to see you.
Nice to see you too.
Very excited to record this first episode in a studio. So, yeah, you were like, is this the first one?
Yeah.
Yes, it is. So let's go back a little bit to this Boom Boom Boutique, which I had no idea about until I started looking into you a bit more, started stalking you on the internet. So talk us through a little bit about why you rebranded and how it evolved into AYM.
Yeah, sure. So I started the business when I was at uni. So it was very much a hobby on the side of what I was studying at university. And I started it as Boom Boom Boutique because at that time I was buying in some product and then reselling it. So it wasn't my own original designs alongside some of my own designs. So I thought boutique kind of matched the name. And then I evolved it to Boom Boom the label over time when I started to then make my own designs fully across the range. And I just felt like it was getting to the point where that name didn't really serve us in the best way. Boom Boom to me was, for one, it sounded a bit too much like Boohoo. And I would always get people saying, oh, I saw your bus advert this morning. I was like, that's definitely not, that wasn't me. So Boom Boom the label and Boohoo were too similar. And being a slow fashion brand and having all of our ethics as like front and center of what we were wanting to do, being associated with Boohoo wasn't anywhere near where we wanted to be. So we wanted to kind of rebrand and think about the name and something that would serve us for the long run. And I think now looking back at it, I wish I had thought more about the name in the beginning to make sure that it was something that would last us a long time, something that I would see over a shop front, something that represented the values of the business. And Boom Boom the label and Boom Boom Boutique didn't do that for us. So we rebranded to AYM or AYM, and that stands for Always Your Moment. So it's about embracing every moment and feeling your best and most confident. And that's where we are today. So
I love it. Yes. And if we go like behind the scenes of what do you prefer, AYM or AIM?
I'm happy with either because I think AYM spells it out. Yeah. But if someone says AIM, they might then go and spell it with an I in the middle. So I think AYM is helpful when it's like an online business.
Yeah.
But I like that it has the duality when it's AIM because it's a target, it's something you aspire to. So I like that it's got that dual meaning. So always your moment and AIM.
Yeah. Always aiming to have your moment.
Yes, exactly.
So what does your team look like now?
So we're quite a small team. So there's 8 of us full-time employed in the business. And then we've got some freelancers alongside that core team. We've gone through stages of having a larger team and a smaller team. And I actually think that the structure that we've got in place right now is the one that serves us the best. And I hope that we'll be able to scale while keeping the team quite small. what I found through running the business for the last 10 or so years is that having a lean team who really, really understand the business, and it's kind of that thing of like too many chefs when it starts to get too big and the communication kind of gets a bit more watered down. But we're a team that can really just sit around a big table. We can be in communication all the time. And I think that works really well as a small business for now. And hopefully we'll be able to scale in that way as well.
Yeah, definitely. 8 is quite a lot actually for where you're at. So who does what? Talk us through it.
Yeah, so in terms of the organisational chart and the structure, we've got a team that are working on production. So we've got production and operations management. So we work with the 3PL who does all of our logistics and distribution. And then we've got factories in London. So all of our product is made in England. So that's organising all of the production, the sourcing of fabrics, all of the fulfilment, and liaising with our distribution centre, making sure everything is running smoothly from an ops perspective. Then we've got customer care. So there's 3 people in customer care. They do split roles. They do customer care and then also other things. Yeah. And I think that's important as a small business to keep the roles quite fluid because things change in the business. Customer care might go crazy one week, but then quiet the next. And it's important that people are happy to chip in other areas. And then we've got marketing, and that's probably our biggest department. And that's marketing itself, content creation, so videography, photography, all those sorts of roles. And then we freelance PR through Robbie, who's amazing. And then we also use a graphic designer and a copywriter. So they all help with freelance contributions towards the marketing department. And then all the design at the moment is still done by me, which is quite a big part of my job.
Yeah, I was going to be like, where do you fit into all this? What are you up to?
And then and then running the business itself. So yeah, working on like just facilitating how do all the different people work together and like kind of being the leader of the orchestra, so the conductor.
And are you happy? Do you think you want to be the CEO, or are you more like creative director that you're leaning towards? Like where are you most comfortable, would you say?
I think I go back and forth on it. I feel like I've always grown up being very creative and loving like art and design and like really getting stuck into creative projects. But equally, I love the creativity of business and like figuring out the strategy and leading and all of those things that come with the business, and even like drilling into the numbers. So I quite like the balance between the two. Yeah. So I think wherever possible, I'll try and do a bit of both. Yeah. But yeah, it really depends on what the business needs at any given time. And I want to focus on what is the best option for AYM, basically.
Yeah, I love that. And it's like being the middle woman between the data and the design. And I love that you said that there is creativity within business as well, because I think so many people start from a design perspective and then think, oh, I love all of this, but like the business side of things, they sort of like put into one big bucket and then just think like put their fingers in their ears. And I'm like, no, that you can have fun there too. Like, even though as I get older, I do sound like Monica from Friends, like more and more like it's organized fun, but it's still fun. So you mentioned that all your production is in the UK, and you have managed to scale your business quite quickly with that as well. So what have been the pros and cons of scaling the business through keeping your manufacturing here?
Yeah, so we very much started with made in the UK, and that's always the way that we've been. So we don't actually know any other way.
That is true.
So it's hard to compare it. And there's probably other things that would be outside of the scope of what I'm used to. But in terms of what our experience is so far, having it made in the UK means that we can be really reactive. So if we release something and people really love it, we can release new colours quickly, we can release different hybrids of it quickly, so we can react quite quickly to demand, which is really beneficial, especially as a small business and a business that wants to scale, because you can really back the product that's working the best. Which is so important.
Yes.
And then we also have the ability to build really, really strong relationships with our factories, which I think is so important. So because they are all based in London, we can literally hop on a train, just go and visit them whenever we need to. We can check the quality. We're really hot on all the communication with the factories. So everything is just so much easier in that regard. And also I think like there are, in terms of the cons, obviously the price is more expensive, but I do think you get what you pay for, and the ability to have it made in the UK, knowing the quality's there, knowing you can just pop in and check on it and like see how everything's going and build those relationships is so important, and it really helps justify that price point. And then you also don't have the logistics of having to pay for it to come into the UK, all the tax, all of that as well. So there are definitely pros and cons to both, but from our experience, having it made in the UK is really beneficial for us.
Yeah, and it gives you something to talk about and promote as well. And obviously I mentioned at the beginning that you're big on sustainability, but really sustainability, it doesn't mean anything unless you put something to it. And so saying made in the UK, locally made, you know, low carbon footprint, and being able to have those relationships as well as like a bonus makes so much sense. And so sometimes I do say to people like, oh, obviously you've got to have the word sustainability on your website because probably people search for it, but don't put it on there if you can't back it up. And definitely. So I love that that is your thing that you've chosen, and you do it so well as well. And like your about page on your website is so interesting. And I think some people's, I don't know, it feels like it could be a bit of a dry place on a website, just to be like, oh, we do this and we do that. But you've really told like this amazing story about how you work with people. And yeah, I recommend anybody go check it out. Like you've got all your pictures on there with like meeting the factory owners and stuff. It's so cool.
Yeah, I think it's great. I think what's so important about it is having the curiosity to understand what happens through the supply chain.
Yes.
And then having curiosity about it and wanting to share that process is so important, because I think the thing that we talk about internally in the business a lot is how do we give our customer as much transparency as possible. And I would say transparency probably trumps sustainability.
I agree.
So it's all like, I think people hunt for sustainability, but if you can do the transparency first, it allows you as a business to actually really investigate that supply chain, really drill down on all of the details within that supply chain, like where are your trims from, where's your fabric from, what's the afterlife of the fabric once the garment's been made and it's constructed, is it like combination fabrics and then it's harder to recycle, or do you not want customers recycling it, do you want it to be sent back to you and you can repair it? Like all of that supply chain challenge that needs to be looked at. When you start to be curious about it and really drill into it, you learn so much yourself through that journey, but you also have so many more stories to tell. And I think the customer deserves to have all that information, especially when they're saving up. Like our dresses are £150 on average, so it's a huge investment for someone, and it's really important that we share as much information as possible as to why it is that price point, and then the customer can make the decision as to whether they feel like that's a justified price point.
Yeah, and I think you're explaining the price even before it's landed, rather than feeling like you've got to justify the price in hindsight. And so people do make an informed decision, you know, with a kind of a mix of your socials, the website socials, and then also I don't know, just putting it all together and then thinking, that is totally worth it. And I think also, obviously, I came to your pop-up at Christmas, and when you touch these garments, OMG, like it's so hard to get that across on Instagram and TikTok, but just trust me that the quality is great. And obviously anyone who has one, I'm sure, comes back for more as well. So going back to like the business side of things again, you said that you kind of like drilling into the numbers and looking at the data. What are the key things that you measure your success on? Is it the fact that you look at your margins or your sell-through rate? So you said, you know, you really back those bestsellers when they're doing really well and you're able to do that. Or where your stock levels run, because I know you do actually work predominantly on pre-order as well. So yeah, talk us through what numbers like get you going.
I think so. It's funny, before I started the business, I would say that I hated numbers, like I hated maths, I hated all of that, and I always found like accounting and those sort of disciplines quite dry. But I think once you start to run a business and you understand that the numbers tell a story, you can really get into the numbers and understand why they matter and what's important about them. And the metrics that we run are probably quite typical in a fashion business. So we look at the traffic to site, the conversion rates, we look at the margins on the products, all of those metrics form what our dashboard is. So as a team, we chat that through every Monday and just make sure that we're happy with where that's going. And if there's any changes in the number, I think the main thing is looking at it comparatively. So how is it doing this week versus last week? What have been the changes and how have those changes impacted the numbers? So when we look at traffic, if there's been a huge spike, has there been an influencer that's posted, and where's that influencer posted from? Has that traffic from that area actually converted? And if not, why? What's happening in that area? And how do we make sure that it is converting? So for instance, last week we had a big spike from a French influencer, which was amazing, and she looked incredible in the dresses, but a lot of the traffic didn't convert. And that suggests to us that we need to look at how are we helping those French customers with language? How are we helping them with shipping options? Like, are we doing enough to help that customer find it easy on our website? And the conversion to me would say no. So looking at conversion rate is a huge number that we look at, and understanding what's impacting that and how we can adjust and evolve and move on from that. When we're looking at product, it's margin, definitely. So
yes.
we
Big
have
up
this,
the margin. Yeah.
We have this mega Excel spreadsheet with every single product, and we look at literally everything that goes into it, all the trims, the cost of the trims, if there's a change in the trim price, the thread cost, how much thread is going into the garments, all the fabric.
Music to my ears. I love it.
There's this massive document. And then we have our target margin. And if the product doesn't hit that target margin, then it's just got the conditional formatting in it, so it turns red. And instantly we'll say at that point through the design development, is this product actually where we need it to be? Because that margin then means that we would have to increase the price point. So then that's putting the price up for the customer. Are they prepared to pay that? Is that justified? Yeah, in the design, all of that. So the numbers make decision making so much easier when you start to understand them, and understanding what numbers to look at is also so important. So yeah, margin is a huge one for us.
Yeah. I love it. I love it. This is all I talk about.
And numbers aren't boring.
No, and that's what I say. Well, maybe maths is boring, but money isn't.
Yeah. I always think that at school they should have given us like projects, like business projects. Yeah. And then it would have allowed us to see, or like done like market stalls, for instance. Then we could have had the actual tangible, like, why is maths important and what does it make an impact for?
Yeah, rather than just looking at triangles. And
exactly.
And what about your systems? So do you have things in place to make the business run a little bit smoother? And just is there anything that you've put into place that makes you feel a bit more in control of the business, or makes it feel like it's a little bit more predictable?
Yeah, I think the main things for us are our tech stack. So we have Shopify. Yeah. And then plugging into our 3PL, they've got their own sort of tech solutions so that we can see our inventory analysis. So we can look at how long has something been on the shelf. Do we need to refresh that style? Are we over ordering on it? Are we under ordering? Things like that. We've got a pre-order app that helps us process pre-orders. But to be honest, that's something that we really still need to work on. I think pre-order in the fashion industry is such a challenging thing to do well. And especially, in what way? So because we're working with a 3PL, their system doesn't work on a last in, first out basis. So it's really challenging when we've got pre-orders, because they will hold orders to one side. So say someone's ordered one item that's a pre-order, one item that's in stock, their system can't handle that. Right. So then we have their whole order sitting to one side, and then the customer is obviously getting in touch and wanting to know where their order is. We might then order a certain number of units of one style, put that into the 3PL in expectation that they're going to fulfill all those oldest orders first, and they don't. They fulfill the newest ones because their system doesn't allow us to say, well, actually, this person's been waiting longer. Yeah. So that's a bit of a nightmare. We're trying to figure that out at the moment, but it's been ongoing for well over 9 months. So it's a real challenge. I think this is where the scalability and the made in the UK area is really great, but the pre-order starts to become challenging for us, because you get, you just have these limitations to pre-order at a certain level, and then you're sitting with all these orders waiting to go out and customers are chasing, and it does become quite challenging. So we're trying to find a better tech solution there, but the rest of the systems in the business are good. So we can have quite a lot of visibility over our order status. We can tell the customers when they should be expecting things. But the nature of made to order or pre-order is that the factories might have a delay, and then that delay, they don't have the tech solutions that we have with the 3PL. They're just not set up that way. So it will often be a phone call and then, this style is delayed by 24 hours, but we'll try our best to get it out to you. So it's those sorts of systems. But in terms of the systems that we use with software, so we've got Shopify, we've got all of our tech solutions through our 3PL. We use Slack for communication. So that's how we're all chatting with the team. And then it's just good old spreadsheets, really.
Yep. Google Drive.
Yep, Google Drive.
And I honestly don't know what we did before Google Drive. Well, I do because I do remember it. But it's like we were saving down spreadsheets, emailing them, don't touch this, somebody's touching it. Like, oh my God, they were so fragile.
Version 1.0, version 1.2, oh, nightmare.
And I try and get across to people how important it is to get the business out of your brain when you're trying to scale. Yeah. Because then, I don't know, kind of giving everybody, all those 8 people, visibility of what's happening inside your mind takes the pressure off of you. Yeah. To an extent, because it is still very much like on your shoulders. But I don't know, just easing the pressure. And some people just think, it's easier if I do it. Do you know what I mean? Yeah. But it's like, it's only easier once. Yeah. It's not easier forever.
I heard this great thing, and it was on a podcast I was listening to. Big up podcast. It was really good, full of information. And this lady, I can't remember her name, but I'll try and find her and message you with her details. But she said, when you do a task more than once, you should always film it on a loom and save it as an SOP. So she was building this whole database of SOPs all based on what she was doing. She would record it if she felt like she was going to do it a second time, and then she would hand that over. And that's something that we've started implementing, and it has been game-changing.
Me too.
It's so good.
Yeah, if you're not using Loom, get onto it. It's just like LOOM.
Yeah.
And you just film everything. And again, if you're trying to tell somebody and they're writing it down and, I can't read my notes. But it's just like, then you can watch the video, press pause. Okay, I'm going to press this button, carry on and press pause, do it again, and just life so much easier.
Yeah, definitely. It's so good.
So let's move on to marketing then. Your personal brand has blown up recently. We're in the presence of a mini celebrity. So what difference has that made to AYM's sales or general visibility as a brand?
So, gosh, it feels so awkward for me because I
never, you on the spot, sorry.
I didn't ever want to have my face to the brand. I always felt like it was really important that, and we always did this actually, where we would cut the heads off the models on the website, because I always felt like it's important that the customer looks at the dress itself or the design rather than the model's face. And I didn't want to become the face of the brand. But what happened during COVID is we, like a lot of brands, we kind of struggled a bit financially, and we were trying to figure out how do we do photo shoots without any budget. And obviously we couldn't have photo shoots anyway because of the COVID restrictions. So I started just filming myself in my spare room, showing the designs, talking them through. And we had a video that went viral from doing that. So I was comparing fast fashion with slow fashion and the difference in the quality. So I had a rip-off design of ours and then our design. And it was quite striking when you start having them side by side, the differences.
Yeah.
That video, I think it was something crazy, 15 million views on it. So it just went mad. And I had, at that time, a few thousand followers on my Instagram account. And it just built and built and built. And I thought at the time, I was like, the nature of social media is that it will be 24 hours and it will be busy and then it will just drop off again. And so I wasn't really expecting anything to come out of it. I just thought it would be one of those fickle things. But actually, it really built momentum for us. And I think the power of social media is that you can put that video out there and then it still burns and builds traction in the background while you're moving on to other things. And I always see it now as like this sort of network effect where as you start to build more and more videos, there's more places that you can show up, and it all helps build traction and traffic back to the site. And I think the power of having a personal brand alongside a brand is that you can help tell the story from behind the scenes, the reasons why that brand exists. And I think more and more people are loving to see behind the scenes of brands. Like I know I like that from other founders.
Same, yeah.
So it really helps when you're making those decisions online to know that it's done well and that someone behind the scenes actually really cares about what they're doing.
Yeah, and that obviously I mentioned in the intro that you'd had gifted Kim Kardashian and she wore your product, which is amazing, and we can get onto that. But also she's the face of Skims. And so when people think, oh, I don't want to be the face of my brand, I'm like, why not? She's making a really great example of doing it, where it doesn't need to be like a bedroom brand kind of thing. It can also be a really cool thing. And, you know, the biggest brands in the world will have a face attached to them. And you think they're not doing that for no reason. They're doing that for a very, very good reason. It's because it works.
Yeah, 100%.
So how do you structure your marketing across? You're everywhere. You're on YouTube, you're on TikTok, you're on Instagram. Like, how do you put a strategy behind that?
Yeah, so what we did in the beginning is we focused just on one channel, and then we've sort of evolved from there and gone on to the other channels, because I think it's important to get the channel right first and not spread yourself too thin, because it can feel super overwhelming. But what we're doing is we're actually just also, when we were in the pop-up shop, I had customers coming up to me and saying, oh, I found you on YouTube, and then saying, oh, I didn't even know you were on TikTok. And to me that was like, wow, we've got an audience on each channel that isn't following us across all. So now we actually just post the same content across all channels, knowing that, yes, some people might see it twice. I don't think there's anything wrong with that. I don't think people need to be ashamed.
The super fans want to see it twice.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And if they've seen it before, then they'll just swipe past it, and that's fine. Like, as long as they're engaging with it on some channel that is their preference. But I think that it highlighted to me that there's actually an audience on each channel, and we need to build each channel individually and make sure that we're approaching and engaging with those audiences as well. So YouTube has been a new one for us, and we're using YouTube Shorts. But the benefit of like short form videos is that we can just post them across all of the channels.
Yeah, it's great.
And it's really nice and easy. So in terms of our strategy, when we're planning photo shoots, we used to do it based on like the creative direction or like a theme. So when I was studying design, it was always like, what's the mood board and like what's the creative direction or the concept? But we now do it based on like, what's the hook? So we actually start with that, and that's how we build out the direction of the photo shoots and the video shoots. So we'll start with, what do we want our customers to say on this video? So what is it that they're going to be encouraged to comment? Like, are we wanting them to say, oh, wow, I love this dress, or, oh, I didn't even realize it had pockets? If that's the sort of engagement that we're wanting to encourage, we then work backwards from that and then say, how are we going to structure this from a storyboard perspective? And then build that in so that we're encouraging those comments. So we start with hook and sort of engagement level that we're wanting to encourage first, and then build out the shoots. And then that means that when we go to a shoot, we have basically like our long list of hooks and content direction. And then that informs what we're filming and what we're capturing from a content perspective.
That is so clever. I've never heard anyone do it like that before, but it makes sense.
It makes it so much easier, because what we were doing before is we'd have all this beautiful content, and then we would sit there and scratch our heads and think, gosh, how are we going to make this fit that trend, or like audio trend, or how are we going to make this highlight the pocket where we're not really talking about it, we've just got this lovely shot of the model walking through a pair of doors. Like it's actually thinking about it the other way
what
around.
Are we saying?
What are we saying first, and lead with that.
That's really clever. And my most simple advice is just do more of what works well and less of what doesn't. And I think you have done that so well. And I heard it sort of phrased as monotonous marketing, which is basically saying the same thing over and over and over again in lots of different ways. And you've really become recognizable for the type of content that you create. So how did that evolve? Was that from lockdown when you were having to film yourself in the clothes? And I know it's hard to make the same video over and over again because you think it gets a bit boring, but from the numbers don't lie. The numbers are saying, please keep making these videos.
Yeah,
so
definitely.
Yeah, talk us through your style of showing the dresses.
Yeah, so the way that we got to that is basically by trial and error. So, and that's something that we want to continue doing. So we'll keep testing different ways of doing things. And you're right, 100% look at the numbers. So we would test, like myself and the business, the team in the business would test, what's this different format working like? Are we showing enough of the product? Are we encouraging enough engagement on it? And how can we tweak it so that we're getting more engagement? So you kind of have to look at it a bit like a science experiment and say, what are we wanting to get out of this? And how do we keep tweaking it and developing it to get more and more engagement and more views? So we've kind of learnt now what that strategy is, and we've kind of got a formula for it. So we build that out. We've got that in a spreadsheet, of course. And we have these different hook formulas, and then we refer back to those. So we just make sure, are we showing, so is the opening something about a challenge that a customer might be facing? Like, what's a problem that a woman might face when she's trying to get dressed in the morning? And how do we show the solution? That might be through a product, or it might be a little styling hack or something. And that's how we then build out that content. So we're always referring back to, like, what is the value that we're driving for the end user? And that's how I've kind of built my own social videos as well, and like how I've built the traction there too.
Yeah. What would you say is an example of a problem and a solution of someone getting dressed? Because I know girls that I've worked with before and they go, it's just a dress. Do you know what I mean? It's not like where, let's say, for example, you need something to keep this cold, and it's like a real problem that gets warm and you need it to keep hot. So like, it's, you know, if on the one hand you could say, oh, it's not groundbreaking, it's a dress, but on the other hand you're like, this dress could change your life, you know. Like, it's I like that you still see it as a problem and solution, even though it might just be like a little niggle that a woman has, but it's a niggle that she has every single day, and it actually does become a problem.
Yes, 100%. I think there's looking at the practical solution. So okay, there's like, how do you make this dress bra friendly? And then building that out, and that's more like product solution based. Or there's the emotive solution. So how do you make someone feel in the morning? Like, how do you feel confident when you're getting dressed in the morning? And it doesn't even need, I think we put so much pressure on ourselves when we're building content to be profound, and we're constantly wanting to have that like game-changing statement that we're making online. But it doesn't have to be profound. Like those little moments, like you mentioned, where every morning we're like, oh, it's so stressful. Like, we've got a busy day and we're having to think about what to wear. We don't want to make that hard. So we want to make that easy for someone. How do you just make it easy for someone to just pick something up and know that they feel confident and look good in it? So it's just as simple as that. And that simplicity is actually really great to show online as well, because I always love the saying, be clear, not clever. And it's how do you be as clear as possible so that more people will understand your message, rather than like trying to be overly profound and groundbreaking and like overly clever with it. So
that's so true. Like, even commuting and being sweaty on the train but cold in the office because everyone wants to whack the aircon up, and just those little tiny things. I think it's a really good reminder. Don't be profound. It's not that deep, but equally helping people every single day, just like a little bit, will make a difference. So looking at the data again, what kind of posts actually move the needle for you when it comes to sales? So you went mega viral recently by gifting, let's say, like, in inverted commas, a normal woman. Can you talk us through like that UGC style content that has started to really grow traction for you?
So that was a real moment for us, actually. I don't know if I'll be allowed to say her name on here, but Karis Whitaker posted a video, and it just went mad. I think it's now on like 20 million views.
And did you gift her, or did she buy
purchased
that? Okay,
So she was a customer, which means that we weren't expecting it. We didn't have any influence over what she was saying about it. She could have equally have said like bad things, but luckily she loved the product.
Especially with 20 million views.
I know, it's always such a relief. So she tried the clothes on, and I think in her video, what worked so well is that she makes it so relatable to women, because it's something that I think every woman struggles with, is how will I, like, that model looks great in the clothes, but how will I look? Like, how will I look when I put that on? You never really know when you order something online if it's going to feel right. You mentioned about the fabrics earlier. Like, you don't have that tangible feel. You can't try it on. So you're kind of waiting in anticipation of, how is this product going to fit me? And is it going to look and feel as good as it makes the model look on the website? And she was able to articulate that in such a great way through her video. And she responds so amazingly with like her pure joy and excitement about putting on the dresses, and how they make her feel like a princess, which is just so sweet and lovely. Cute. And she looks incredible. And I think it highlights that emotional power of dresses and clothes generally. Like, you can have such an emotional impact on someone that wears your clothes when they're designed well and they're designed with thoughtfulness built into them. And she feels amazing in it. And I think that shows for me, like, when we're thinking about the strategy around social media, is how do you portray that emotive language? So how do you show someone an element of surprise? So for her, she was saying in the opening of the video, I don't know how I'm going to look in these dresses. Like, have you been seeing these dresses online? I don't know how I'm going to look in them, or how will it look on a body like mine? And then she puts them on and she's like, wow, I didn't expect that. And I think the sort of element of surprise and that emotion has such real tangible feelings for people that are watching it.
Yeah.
So,
and then seeing themselves in her, to be like, well, I look like her, and I know that I could look like her. I might not look like a model, or maybe the model looks like that because she's a model. Like, how much of it really is the dress and all those little like self-doubt things. And
and is it pinned at the back? Have they got those massive crocodile cuts on the back of the dress? Like, you don't know when you're shopping online. So knowing that actually someone can wear it and do a 360 on camera and move around and spin and dance. There's
no like trickery.
There's no trickery.
Yeah. And it's like building trust with people, isn't it? Because I think trust is like at an all-time low generally, like in the world, let alone just with shopping. And with AI as well, and who knows if it's a real picture, or is it even a real person? Is it a real model? Who knows? And so like you say, just being able to see that really realistic woman, I think there's a huge future for that style of content with the introduction of AI coming, maybe.
Yeah, definitely.
So for people who are like completely burnt out by content creation, I'm sure you've had content burnout yourself, and just had total mind blank. Where do you go, let's say, when you do hit a wall with content?
Yeah, I think it's good to batch it. So I know a lot of people, there's like different arguments in this sphere of like, oh, don't rely on your mood for when you're filming, like make it a habit and all of that. But at the end of the day, when you're filming, like, there is a huge element that needs to be your mood. Like, you need to show up as your best self and feel good and like feel confident in the filming that you're doing. So the way that I try and do it to avoid burnout from it, because that happens all the time, it's so overwhelming to feel like, you know, especially when you're running a business and there's all this other pressure on us as business owners to get on with the day job, and then to also be the face of the brand and to film content and to showcase the product and to think about that. That's a whole other job in itself. So, and that's something that we need to do as like female founders of businesses, is showed behind the scenes, but it is a lot of pressure. So I try and build it so that when I'm feeling good, I will try and batch. So I'll say, okay, right, I'm going to batch as much content as possible. And then I know that will try and get me through like the next month if possible. And then when I've got like a day where I'm feeling flat, or I don't want to put makeup on, or I just don't want to film. Yeah.
Face it.
Got other stresses going on. Then I don't have to think, oh, right, I have to jump in front of the camera. And like, because I think then it's like not authentic. You're having to put it on to then do it. And then it feels more like a performance rather than like genuinely excited. Know.
They can see. I wish we could bottle the feeling of like authenticity, because you'd be a millionaire. But
definitely.
Yeah, just people know when you're feeling it. And if you're like really excited to create that video, and then you press post and you know it's going to do really well and like you get all buzzy versus like, oh, I should probably post something today, and then you post it and it falls flat and then you feel even flatter than you did when you posted it.
It's just a spiral, isn't it?
Oh my God,
And I think also when it isn't going well, it's just important to take a step back from it and just say, right, I'm going to give myself a few days off of this, and I'm going to look at like back to the core, like what are the things that I care about? What do I want to say? What actually inspires me? What makes me excited to talk about? And think about things like what you would talk to your friends about. Like if they ask you, oh, how's it going with work? Like what would you talk about? And just like jot those things down and then film that, because those are the things that will create excitement, and then that excitement will come through authentically. But yeah, I think it's important just to have a step back from it sometimes. Give yourself some breathing space from it.
Just take some time.
Yeah.
It's not that deep. And so looking back, like how long have you had the business now?
Since 2012.
Wow.
So yeah,
oh my goodness.
a long time.
And obviously people following you on TikTok probably do think you're some sort of like mad overnight success. But what would you say is a lesson that you've learned the hard way that you now are going to carry forward into the next 12, 13 years?
Yeah, I think not being rigid with building out systems in the business. So for a while in the business, I was really focused on, okay, well, we need like an amazing office space, and we need a studio, and we need this and we need that. And I thought that is what success meant, like what we needed to sort of facilitate the success, and also what success looked like. That's kind of is how it felt naturally to build the business. But actually, I think it's so important to take a step back from that and look at like, how do you remain lean? And being lean is so important as you're growing a business, because you never know, especially in fashion. And I would always have people saying to me, oh, fashion's so fickle, and like, how are you going to grow your little pretty dress business? And it was like, oh, God.
Yeah, don't get me started. That's a whole other episode.
I'm going to prove them wrong. I'm going to get this big studio and all this. And actually, the best way to not be stuck in a rut when it comes to like the fickleness of fashion is to be lean. And like, it does have ebbs and flows. All businesses do, not just fashion. All businesses have ebbs and flows. There's increasing demand, there's dropping demand, all of these things. And it's so important to remain lean, so then you can be flexible and you can respond to what works and what doesn't. So yeah, remaining lean is one of my key lessons.
Yeah, it's so good. There is actually a book called The Lean Startup.
Yes, it's great. Yeah.
I started it. I haven't finished it, but now I'm going to go away and finish it.
Yeah, it's really good.
And I imagine going like kind of circling back to making in the UK, that helps you stay lean as well.
Definitely.
With the amount of stock that you hold and how reactive you can be. Because I remember working at big brands that we had to buy all our basics and things through the Far East, but they weren't trend-led things. We would always save some money to buy something closer to home, closer to season. We wouldn't know what it was, but we just had to sort of wait and see.
Oh, right. And then you would pad that in alongside the other things.
That was always the bestseller.
Okay.
Without a doubt. So like the more information you have and the longer you can wait, the more likely you are to get it right. And so that's also a great pro of making in the UK.
Yes, 100%.
Yeah.
And it's a challenging one, because like I get pushback from the team, understandably, because they're like, I need more planning from you, like from the design side. We need more planning. And I
just wait a minute.
I'm like, we need to get it right, and we need to wait as long as possible. But it does make their work harder, so it is like a bit of a balancing act. You have to make it easier for the team to get things done, and having more time on planning like fabrics at least far enough in advance, and planning out that production schedule is important. But getting it like the timing right of, because like for us now, this is a great example, like March has been unseasonably hot, and going into April it's so warm, and actually a lot of the collections probably have moved forward a bit, and we need to be able to react to that quite well. But last year it was freezing cold,
all the way up until like September. I think I remember working with quite a few brands actually that were like, I've got all these summer dresses, I don't know what to do with them. And I was like, I honestly wish I had an answer for you. You know, we can talk about holidays and we can talk about packing and things, but if the weather's not there, the weather's not there.
I know. And that's almost like bringing that other piece in to make it warmer. Like, how do you then bring in like a matching cardigan or something that you can just chuck over top? Or swapping out the collections and moving that to the next year in hope that that's going to be a warmer year, or like just being sort of reactive as best you can. So.
Yeah. And that also goes back to your point about, okay, it might be more expensive to buy the garment initially in the UK, but because you are waiting, your sell through is much better. Yeah. So your intake margin might look higher, but your exit margin is way better.
Yeah, so, definitely.
Yeah. Anyway, again, we could be a complete nerd about that forever. So what would the next 12 months look like for AYM? Like if it was the perfect 2025, 2026, what would your dream vision be?
So for me, it's just continuing to learn from our customers. So having like more and more clarity on who our customer is and what they want from us, and finding ways to connect with them in person, because I love doing the pop-up shops. That was so fun. So doing more brand activations and getting to meet our customers in person would be amazing. And just keeping designing great products. So nothing, to be honest, nothing too elaborate, but
like
I just
more of the same.
Yeah, it's like it's working well. So don't
touch it.
Yeah, don't try and fix what's not broken.
Yeah, so. I know. I heard on Shark Tank, Emma Grede say something that was like, take your obsession with designing product and turn it into an obsession with your customer.
Oh, interesting. That's a good saying.
So you're already doing it. Like you could be a shark yourself. So let's go quick fire round then. Some fun little questions to get to know you a bit better. So what is the first thing that you do when you sit down at your desk in the morning? So, or do you even have a desk?
I do. I have one of those fancy sit down, stand up ones, but I always sit down. So I need to get better at actually using it for standing up. I look at my schedule. Very boring. I'll sit down with a nice cup of tea and I'll look at my schedule, and then I'll just figure out what are the priorities for today. Like, how can I drive the most value for the business? So like, what are the top 3 tasks that I'm going to try and get done today? I tend to have this awful habit, which I know probably a lot of us do, where I just write this massive mega to-do list that's just like never ending. So.
Well, maybe that is a tip in itself. You will never ever get to the bottom of your to-do list when you run a fashion brand.
Yes.
Ever. Don't even bother trying, because you'll die sad. Just it's ongoing, and that's fine. It just means that there's so many more fun things that you can do.
100%. And it's okay to do those to-do things tomorrow. Like it doesn't have to be done today. So it's just figuring out like what is actually going to move the needle today and focusing on that, and then building in the other things for the rest of the week or month or year. And like bullet journaling really helps with that as well. So like you can just cross out your to-do list, move it to the next day, look at like what you've done that day, and keep sort of iterating and evolving it. So
I've never tried bullet journaling, but now I'm tempted.
It's really good actually. It's so helpful for keeping things short and sweet and not overwhelming yourself with it. So it's a really good tactic.
There's nothing that beats just scribbling something out.
You know, like a big thick line for something.
Just deleting it on your phone is just like not very satisfying. So aside from AYM, obviously, what is a brand that you are kind of obsessing over at the moment?
I think actually I've probably gone into the realm of homeware and interiors. So because I'm like very excitedly building a house at the moment, so that's kind of our little side project.
And tell people where they can watch the
Birkin Park is the Instagram account, so you can see all of our disasters as they play out. It's the next thing that I'm going to learn lots of lessons about. So I think in terms of brands that I'm loving, I love like Rowan and Wren and Duval Kitchen. So they all tell like amazing stories, and I love that. And there's a brand called Piglet in Bed as well.
I love that.
Aren't they so great? They're really, really good at telling that whole journey throughout the whole product cycle and telling those amazing stories on social. So like they just create this like really dreamy content that you could just get lost in. So I love what they're doing.
Great tips. And I think we've kind of covered this, but to kind of wrap up, what's the one thing that brings you clarity when you get stuck?
So I think it's just going back to the core, like what do you care about? What are the values of the business? What are your personal values? And how can you be curious about those? Are there areas where you can learn a bit more about them? Because I always feel like curiosity is a huge driver, if not probably more than passion. Like if you're curious about something, it has that burning like, oh, I've just got to find out the answer. Whereas passion then fuels that afterwards. But I think if you're curious about it, so figuring out what you care about and what you're curious about, And then that just helps like kind of realign, refresh, like, and then get back to the core of what you're doing.
Yeah,
So.
it's like a compass, isn't it?
Yeah, definitely. Resets you. Yeah.
Oh, well, thank you so much, Ali. It was so
you.
good chatting to you. And if you love this chat, please follow, leave a review. If you've got a question for me or for Ali or for future guests, join my broadcast channel on Instagram and we can have a chat there. So.
I love your broadcast channel.
Do you?
It's so good.
Oh,
and I love
you
that
so much.
it's just like, it's such a community of replies as well. So you can just get real insights and knowledge from yourself and also the other people that are on that channel. So I love it. It's great.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, it's a bit of a new thing, but I'm excited to do more with it. So
yeah, it's brilliant. It's like reading like a really good forum.
Thanks. Fashion founders, let's talk about something your brand can't exist without. Words. You already know your designs are incredible and your vision is clear, but something is missing. If you're feeling invisible in the fashion world, struggling to sound consistent across platforms, or feeling fed up not knowing what to say in your marketing, then you need the Visionary, the ultimate brand voice masterclass by Studio C. Led by Studio C founder Charlotte Ferris, this on-demand masterclass harnesses a decade of experience to guide you through all things brand voice so you can shape your signature sound and transform casual followers into loyal customers. What you say and how you say it is infinitely powerful. Mastering your brand voice isn't just about writing better, it's about building a voice that's unmistakably yours, one that speaks authentically and connects you endlessly to your dream customers. I know firsthand how fundamental finding your brand voice is, which is why I worked with Studio C to write the copy for my website back when I first became a fashion brand consultant. So if you're ready to make your fashion brand stand out, head to studioc.uk today to join the Visionary, the ultimate brand voice masterclass, and get ready for your brand to break through the noise.